Trustee Morrissey. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, carried. Any items not on the agenda? There being none, any conflicts of interest? There being none, we'll go straight into long day reserve for Kari dieback. Pretty straightforward. Move Murray to a seconder.
Yep.
John, any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, carried. Water metering grant funding acceptance and budget approval. Smooth, moving.
I'd like to talk to it as well. So I'm happy to move the receiver.
Okay.
And then I'll just go on to another question.
Decent resolution to receive that. Okay, Tony, did you?
So I'm aware that we are dealing with water as a signature of Matarani. And I know that there's a significant support for metering Matarani, because we know we've been told as much as we know where they go. I don't know if that extends to part of Matarani.
At the moment, that's for future years. So
Okay.
this funding that we've got at the moment was specifically for Fittiering and Plantain.
Okay. That's what I'm right.
Do you want to move the whole resolution then?
I'll move the whole resolution.
Aaron, do you want to second the whole resolution?
I'll see you.
You can ask questions.
Yes. Can I ask a question? The term smart meters, and I just want you to explain that, Bruce, if you the term smart meters is about that wide. Correct, yeah. So how smart are our smart meters? Are they dumb smart meters, or are they, reasonably full of low saying?
So through the chair, I don't want to use too many analogies, but they're probably average smart meters. They're not going to be top of the class, but they're not going to be bottom of the class either. So you're right. There's a range of smart meters, from ones that can talk to your power meter, then go back to the power company, and then the information gets siphoned on water to the council. There's ones where you can install a little in each street, have a little like a little slave that sends the stuff back. What? A node. Node, thank you. Node's pretty term, not a slave. Yeah, so there's a range of ones. The ones that we're looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mo, when we last talked about it, was the ones where you'd still have to do the drive around and pick up the data, which is very quick because you drive a ute down the road, you have a little transport or receiver in the vehicle, and it pings each as it goes past, and you just pick up all the data. So you just drive down the road, and that's it. You pick up all the data.
So you do the place like we're getting in 3 hours.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think now what we were doing. It was kind of taking us about 3 hours to do an area that would normally take 3 days to manually read. When we did that previously.
Because Thames is manual.
Thames is manual, so we installed 20% of Tyro had smart meters installed a number of years ago for a trial that we did. And your area that took 3 days manually for one person was 3 hours. So,
Yep.
So
is there an option to go the next level, so this laboratory can turn up on device in this office? So there's no right class, no nothing. Whatever that gap is, and then we fund it, but we cover that through the water rate.
That is possible.
Because I think, we can't make a profit out of water, but we can use the revenue to guarantee supply and all those things as well. So
it's a little
for me, depending, I don't know what the difference is, but I'm tempted to go for the, I'm not going to say the Rolls Royce, but yeah, and just simply add, like, 2 cents or 5 cents a cube. There's a lot of money when you see how much water goes through this place, and we'd have it paid for. And we take that one element out, and we have to send someone out in a truck to drive it and bring it back and download it and do whatever you do.
It seems quite okay.
Yeah, for me, I would be interested in investigating going for the best technology we can afford and recovering that. So we don't fund it and we recover it through the water rate.
Because the next available step to that, Councillor, is that basically through use of radio frequency antenna. So from the meter, it will transmit the information to the antenna that then gets transmitted back to the office. That's going to full hog. So when we discuss with Tauranga, they too are doing it in stages. So first they're installing the drive-by facility, that could then be extended to an RF system because that involves integration with council's IT system and also data receptivity. So it can be done, needs a bit more work.
So through the chair, it's a challenging project in the central government funding, and there's a lot of requirements on the funding, as you know, that we have to commence by March next year, and we need to be finished by the March in 2022. So we've got a number of constraints on us. It's government money. So
Can I just make a comment there? I think what we've got to do is we've got to lock and load the government funding first and foremost, and we've got a contract in place. What I'm hearing is that there is an additional piece of kit that if we went that way, we could install that piece of kit that will use the meters that we're purchasing and transmit it back. What we will do is we will investigate that and bring that as an out-of-cycle budget request in probably end of February, March, if it seems like a viable option at that time.
That's fine.
Yep.
For me, I'm happy if we can get to that.
And even if we have to delay it for a year or two, the meters we put in are still fit for purpose in terms of add-on.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, true.
Still happy? Moving on.
Yeah,
So through.
Sorry, Gary.
yeah, I just raised, Whangamata's got some issues around these, as you've known over the years. There's some who are not connected but actually have paid or done their job to get them connected. How are you going to deal with Whangamata?
We evaluated the option of charging these customers or consumers either through development contributions or just charge them the standard connection fee. Pursuing the development contribution option, the cost actually outweighs the benefits.
Yeah.
And it's a better approach for council to charge the standard connection fee. I'm assuming there'll be probably a handful of.
So everybody will get a connection and those who aren't connected will pay the connection fee of $1,000.
Yeah, so we just, through the chair, we do need to work through that detail, Terry, because it is hard to know, as you know, who is connected, who isn't connected, because of just the way that Whangamata has kind of developed over the years. A lot of people have their own bores on site and they're changing across to the council system, sometimes without our knowledge. So there's a bit of a package of work we need to do specifically in Whangamata, so we will try and incorporate that as
So
part
the
of
idea is to get everybody on a meter on their own place.
Definitely, yeah, we need to be moving, that's what we need to be, that's our objective, yeah.
So I just want to know, talks about it should be noted that water meters will not be used for charging purposes at this time. I have a feeling that when we talked about this before, we'd said that for the first year, they'll be sent out like a mock invoice saying, well, based on your water usage, this is how much you would have been charged. So people have the opportunity to look at that compared to their current rates bill. Has that kind of changed, and are we now looking at doing it for several years? Because this talks about 2024, 2034 long-term plan.
So through the chair, what we talked about is that my recommendation was we wait for 2 years. And if you think that the meters aren't all going to be installed until March 2022, go to the end of that financial year, it's not long before you're into the next LTP. The other reason we need to do that is that if we're moving how we charge it, we need to go through a consultative and planning process.
Okay.
So you could try and do it earlier, so you could pull it into an annual plan and do it ahead of time, but just knowing how projects normally go and how everything works,
right.
normally,
So
I think that time will be used up pretty quick. 1 year is quite tight. I know the worship, the mayor was putting pressure on me to go with a year, but I think 2 years is probably more realistic for having a number of reading cycles, giving people time to get things repaired, especially people that aren't in their premises all the time, you know. So, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm open to negotiation.
No, not good. You know your work best. Tony.
I was having just quickly scanned this document.
Can we just deal with one thing at a time? Thanks,
Oh, I
Tony.
was turned up as part of the water demand.
Yeah, no, it's actually, we're talking on water metering right now. Can we just keep that separate?
This is what this is about.
So let's,
This is going out to ratepayers on what's happening.
it's just that I'd quite like to tidy this one.
Okay, I'm happy with that. Just
And
one.
then you're next. You can be next on that, okay? So we tidy this one. Are there any other questions of the?
So through the chair, there's one more resolution that we wanted to add in, and that was around delegation. So the chief
Taking
exec,
it on to item 3?
yes, so well, taking on a fourth one.
No.
Oh, fifth one.
You want to make this
Sorry, I
one?
got the wrong one, yeah.
Blow it out, yeah. Blow it up, blow it out.
So it's basically delegating authority to the chief exec to approve the procurement process. Because we're on a tight time frame where we must commence the work by March next year, we've got to procure the meters, and so everything's running very fast. We're not going to have time to get everything procured. We then have to come back to council in February to get the procurement of the meters. We'll be working on this over the peak period, and we need to keep it moving. So yes, so it was around the procurement process that set the tenders. So we're going through a procurement process, but we're not going direct or anything.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to add to what Bruce just mentioned is that there is a 10% penalty if we don't meet the government timelines. So very, very strict, and they'll also take the money back.
You mean the government will, nice.
Yep.
Can we impose that on the government?
Okay, so are there any further questions around the water metering item? And Murray and Tony, you're happy with the fifth resolution? Okay, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And now could we just take a moment? We've been just given an article here about individual councils as the water demand strategy, and which is quite separate from the water supply strategy.
So through the chair, it is for the Whiringa and Whangamata communities
The
around water
maintenance
metering.
Project.
So it's like a rates insert for those two communities, because we're going to be moving into the process. So
I thought this was going out to everybody.
No.
Apart from the
Oh, just to those, to you two. You two guys. Okay, so if you want to take a moment to read it,
I've read it, I've got a comment on it.
yeah, go for life.
The only thing is in that last, or second last paragraph, it'd be useful if we could let people know it won't necessarily mean an increase in the cost of water. It's not a council revenue generating. In some cases, people's water bill will go down.
So that's correct. So through the chair, I suppose all I'd say with that is that at this stage, we're not charging for them.
I
So
appreciate that.
we need to be careful that we don't inadvertently put information in there that makes it sound like we are going to start charging straight away. And so but we can definitely add something in that around the charging is going to be the subject of a future planning and consultation
Well,
process.
also, there's been quite a lot of communication going on already on this topic. And there's an awful amount, I'll say 9% of the social media comment is negative. It thinks that we are in the process of finding a way to get more money out of it. It isn't that case at all. It's being more efficient, and in some cases, saving people money.
Yes.
Because if we take today, measure today, the minimum will measure 10 years time if we start charging people. Two people living in a house that don't have a garden, don't have a lawn, don't have a car, don't have a jet ski, don't have a boat, their water rate will be like their power bill, will go down. So somehow the thinking has to be, this is no different than your power bill. If you leave your air conditioning all day long, you get a big bill. If you don't turn it on, you have a very small one.
Correct.
Because it's a hearts and minds issue with people when they get it. You know, they're suspicious the minute they see us putting a meter in. I don't know, you know, I'm not the person to do that, but I just think we could somehow allay the fear that we're going to be getting more money out of it.
Yep.
That's a comment. For me personally, I don't care if there's that.
Yeah, so happy for any feedback on this. If any feedback, maybe today get this back to Lorna's team or back to Mo and myself, and we'll make sure we get that tweaked. So it reads right.
I just have one comment that I'd like to throw into the room, just see if it flies. But at the bottom there, we seem to be linking water restrictions with the inclusion of the installation of water meters. And water meters are about the demand and efficient operation of the network. It's not about water meters restrict the use of water. And I don't like the connotation in that. So I would rather have water conservation measures are in place as a bold statement at the bottom, rather than water restrictions are in place. And the website that we're providing this information about the water meters, I would rather have it on the website tcdc.gov.nz/conservation measures. Because that's actually what water meters are about. It's conserving the water that we treat. not restricting the water that we treat.
So in line with that, can we add also the word conservation as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 word in the first line? So it reads, our water demand strategy identifies conservation measures. So that puts it, it's a positive.
Yeah, so through the chair, so the team have worked over the last few years to try and change that to conservation measures, and so unfortunately water restrictions has managed to creep its way back in. So so we'll do what we can do, but I know like a lot of the stuff that the comms team have put out around deadlines and stuff, that there'll be restrictions, that information will be out there, sorry, there's restrictions for some of it, but we'll definitely look at changing whatever we can change to water conservation, because it's...
They should be able to change that. Okay, we'll keep our fingers
Rob's
crossed.
point's totally accurate. Like I say, we've changed it in the past to water conservation because that's what it's about. It's about conserving. And as Kiwis, you know, we don't like to waste anything, you know, so it's about minimising wastage and conserving what we've got.
Okay, awesome. Well done, guys. Any other comments, questions? Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. We sure of you safe and enjoy the festive season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, go ho ho. Have a great New Year as well.
Thanks, Mike.
We're hearing to make a noise. Okay, so now we're on to page 30, Toro Community Escape Facility permit. With the report. So there's just one thing I wanted to add here, that subject to council receiving the community funds, the portion of community funds. So,
What do you
did you
mean?
want?
Which page
Does
is
it
it?
show a bank balance or something like that? Yeah.
No, funds actually in council hands from the community contribution.
Is that how we want it?
Well, we've been in a position where we haven't had the funds forthcoming
And I know,
in another situation, so we don't want to create that situation again.
no, so bank balance is not special.
No, because what's it doing? It needs to be ours. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about it. That the funds need to be in the council hands to proceed with the project.
Is that policy or is that your?
Well, that's how I'm suggesting that we do it, because we've been in a situation where we've had funds pledged and they haven't been forthcoming, which meant a shortfall in funding for a project.
Yeah. I don't think the credibility of this group is that bad that they can show you a bank statement saying, here is the money, and when you're ready, they'll pass it over. Isn't that the right way to work? The job's ready.
What?
Not putting it in.
I mean, I'm just putting it out there so that you can consider it, because we do need to consider these things. Would be foolish not to. Tony?
So just on, so this works like, say, Mercury Bay,
Yeah.
someone will there'll be a tender for someone to build this asset.
Yeah.
And the asset will be on council's books, in this case, in Thames-Coromandel.
Yes.
And we will be paying, we will be responsible to pay the contractor.
Yes.
Yep.
Therefore, the money should sit in our bank account. With
Yeah,
our,
well, then, when they're ready, they'll pass it over.
this way.
So you're
The right time.
Well, I think that's like we're going to.
You don't think of
money, same as everyone else.
You don't think you have the money at hand?
Well, I don't. Well,
The job doesn't go ahead until they come in.
There's no question about it going ahead.
I would suggest the contract is not actually let until the money's there.
Okay.
Just by that time, the money we get.
Well, there's,
They don't need to give it now. Because they haven't got the number. They can get the number, show the bank account, and the project manager's ready to get it, they'll pass it over.
So that's very good. Contract is only let once the funding is on.
Yeah.
but I think just,
So, okay, so therefore we don't need to modify the resolution.
And I'm happy to move the resolution. I'll second it.
Seconded, moved Terry, seconded John. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, hang on, discussion?
So I just have one point I just wanted to check. It talks about top of page 33, says Tyra, it should be Tyra Parwin from the Community Board, will receive and consider the submissions at its February meeting as well as suggested mitigation and changes to the proposal in response to submissions received. But presumably that's going to be reasonably low level changes. It's not changing the substantial proposal, which is a skate park and Corey right to make.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's only tinkering, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be around the landscaping, the details around rubbish bin,
Right.
things that we've heard.
So it's not going to hold up the process happening.
No, we've got a certificate of compliance that's linked to a skate park, basically designed.
Right.
We can't change or alter that
Okay.
too substantial.
Because I'd really hate for this thing to not move from now to February. Would just seem a waste of time, but.
I don't think it affects it, does it?
No.
We're just looking at the landscaping options.
Correct.
Yeah, I was just wanting to clarify because I saw that and I was like, what? But that's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So I don't think anybody's got a basic issue with anything at all. So it's been moved and been seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, moving on to the next item, which is the event around the Oregon public. Do I have a move on? Big plan, long-term plan, page 41. Oh, yes, we were needed to go through this line by line for Holden and Donna on the projects that we're going to replace it budget. List A, some of the list B.
We're going to say Thames as we discussed it, and so line by line, we're happy that that's done. Is that okay to say that?
Yeah.
Because I think if we go back over it, I'll get another good idea and I'll suddenly want to change. Incredibly dangerous.
There's lots of good ideas.
I know it's rude to interrupt, I just want to say thank you guys.
Could I just ask a question? Are there any district-wide projects affected in this discussion? If there aren't, then I would imagine that every community area knows those projects and we should already have that list.
Terry said there was something different.
Oh, now he's left.
He's got a recent list, which I'm not sure if anything's been changed on.
No, but we can't discuss that for this. So, we could work through, we might have to work through that later until after the committee discussion.
We've got it.
Yes, we've got the thing, but still.
Rather than everybody have to go through what they think, you can read it out and everyone can tick along and we can just raise any variance.
You don't need to read Thames and you don't need to read Coromandels, do you? John?
Just long as nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed since the last workshop.
Nothing's changed already, yeah? You want all yours in?
Nothing is, through the chair, nothing's changed other than this opportunity is if there is anything in that B list that you want in the must-dos, this week, we need to get this nailed down today.
No, let's not confuse the must-dos. The must-dos are the must-dos.
Yeah.
The council preference is the must-dos plus what the community boards are choosing as their preference to be done.
Yeah.
So if everybody's putting all theirs in, some of that's district-wide, does that have?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is if there's anything district-wide, then it requires a conversation.
But we've had that conversation.
No, because they want everything.
But that's still only, it's still in there nice to have, and that's the preferred option, and they will be fighting for that. They haven't got in the must-dos, the 7 projects, they're in the second list, and they're quite convinced they want them, and they will go for that preferred option. It's still, they haven't got anything in must-dos that no one else has, in my understanding. Yeah.
Which were your 7 projects in?
Well, there's more than 7, but they start around the cemetery, stage 3 done, and they end up with the quarry car start up to a footpath extension. So it's that lot, that are all part and parcel of Ripley Vale, continuing its growth. and the cost to put all those in is $12.50, or whatever the number is. The district component might be $3, I don't know, but when we think 80% of the reserves are in Mercury Bay and we pay for all them, and 80% of the toilets are in Mercury Bay and we pay for all them, a couple more up in there.
No, none of those are district, so.
Yeah, all the toilets are, and they're not, that's the local, yeah. No.
Can I just clarify that? Can I just clarify that, so the projects that these guys are asking for are only the Mercury Bay ones, not the district ones? Not the district ones that are in Mercury Bay?
Yeah, no, cool,
Only the Mercury Bay ones?
Good chair.
It's all good, it's not.
You say that?
Anything with Mercury Bay or Thames or Coromandel next to it is a local.
Is a local rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got that.
And just, couple of things, Sandra, and the nice campus. The community board was keen, and I am to actually continue with the footpath construction and the purchase. There's a little confusion here, that Harrogate House Reserve Car Park, that is actually the purchase of the car seal. And given the impact that's going to have on our local rates, we can look at those two items being separate into the.
Are they coming out of the C list into the B list?
Coming out of the B list is the ones we want.
Yeah.
B into A. But we're not, no, stop.
No.
As far as I'm concerned, the must-dos are the must-dos,
Yep.
not nice-to-haves.
Unless it has an impact on your local rate only.
Well, that can be sorted out later. Nice-to-haves, you can also, nice-to-haves is also the preferred option for your community board, and if you get the right information, well, then you will approve that. But the minute you put it into the must-dos, well, then people like us will start to try and put
Yeah, this is
out
where we
the
break
must-dos.
ranks.
So this is very dangerous territory.
Just to be perfectly clear then, are my actions any different to Mercury Bay's?
No, because Mercury Bay is crystal clear. They've got must-dos, they have nice-to-haves, and they've got 7 projects in there locally funded, which they committed to, and that will be their preferred option.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
No, you're not. You wanted it up with the must-dos.
Close off.
No, it's not as in that way.
Identifying the local projects that he wants to include with the must-dos. As part of his.
Funded local.
Funded
So
locally.
you've got it right, just to move things from the nice-to-haves into the must-dos.
I just want to go to my friends over here.
But that's what they're trying to do as well.
Yeah, they've got their local projects as part of their must-dos. John's going, your local projects, so you've sorted your local projects out, John's just sorting his.
There's only two little ones.
Well, can we?
Hayden and Donna, do you understand what John wants for his projects?
In the long-term plan, what we're going to see is 2 lists,
Yes.
which is must-do and nice-to-haves.
Yeah.
And then it's going to have a 3rd list to say, this is council's preference based on the first 2 lists. Yeah, so it still leaves the community knowing and understanding what the cost of delivering the must-dos is. It also tells them what the cost of the full list of nice-to-haves is.
Yeah.
And it tells them the cost of what the blend of council's preference would be. Now, in theory, that should be somewhere in between cost of that and cost of that, in theory. And that's what the intent is that we're trying to achieve. So we're not combining any projects from one list into the other. We're just saying there is a 3rd list, which is pulling things into a council preference list.
The bit wrong, I don't understand that, because this is what I'm looking at right now. So this is the nice-to-have funded locally.
Yeah.
Well, this is here.
Yes.
So we've got the must-do list, whether the district, whatever. What we're saying is take all these ones out again, put them in the Mercury Bay must-do, Mercury Bay paying for it, and that's us. When we, well, 50.
I think the must-dos have to be the things that actually definitely has to be
Forget about
done.
the must, that's right, forget about the must-dos, we're not discussing the must-dos, but they're done. They're done.
It's sort of add to just the nice.
No.
The impact of the nice thing.
We're not
Sorry, whoa.
When we had this conversation at the first workshop, and this is what you indicated, Terry pointed out that actually, even though you're paying for them at your local rate, there is an impact across all of the ratepayers because of the borrowing and interest. And so that's the thing that we're concerned about. And so when we last had our workshop and we were discussing this, we all went away with the idea that we had these two lists. We have the must do, we have the nice to haves, and we were going to consult and ask people what they wanted. And now you're changing the rules of the game again, so that you want more things than the must do. That's not fair. We haven't had time to go and watch our community.
No, we haven't changed the
We haven't
Yes, you
discussed,
have.
you just said, so you our lot into the must-dos that we pay for, no cost anyone else.
Don't use the word must-dos, use the like, the must-dos have been.
These aren't like, I'm trying to explain, these are to cope with the growth that's happening there. Something some people
You
don't
want to have
understand.
a look at Mercury Bay's nice to haves that they want.
No, I do not.
Sorry, if I can just, I think it's really important that we keep the must-dos as the must-dos. I know you guys are saying those 7 projects are must-dos for you, but they have to be in that second
Yes,
list.
that's not that they are. But
Well,
it's also that
Tony just said he wasn't on the must-do list.
We're saying that costs $12.73.
Yeah.
How come you wear that?
Fine.
You all don't.
Fine, but it's not in the must-do list.
No, it's not, but we're saying we want them as much.
But Tony, he wants to put them in the must do's.
It's just like John said, he's got his must-dos, and then he's got his 2 nice to haves.
Yeah.
Mercury Bay have got their must-dos, and then they've got their 7 or 8 or whatever it is.
And we've got some too.
Nice to haves. Yeah. You've got, so everybody's been talking at cross purposes, really. It's, look, we're probably all getting tired, stressed, it's Christmas.
It's Terry that wants to change things, so we can
Yes,
hear from
thank
him.
you, thank you. So the
And
projects,
Terry's is the only one that we can't discuss, we're finished discussing. Isn't it?
no,
You, oh, okay.
nothing to do with that. So under the C's that we wanted in the nice to have, that hasn't fronted up for some reason, there is those first 4 projects, not the bottom 2, the first 4. So the swimming pool is a key. We've got 1,500 petition, we've got concept, we want this in nice to haves. So there's one, the Wentworth Valley Walkway, the Whangatar boat ramp, the Whangatar swimming pool, minor works in the cemeteries, yep, want that in there. And the causeway bike path is part of the safety issue. So we want them in the nice to have, not all of them, just left 2. And Tyrell Paranui would like, coming out of their C list into the nice to have, the Puka Park reclamation.
Paku Bay.
Eh?
Paku Bay.
Yeah, Paku Bay, thank you.
So they're going to be costed.
Eh?
They need to be costed now.
And it'll be costed, absolutely. So this is just trying to really sit down and have a look at this, so it's worthy of.
What do you want to,
That's right. But what's the issue?
Well, they should have costed once ago, so.
There are C's.
So through the chair, we did talk about this at a number of workshops, that the C list was not costed.
That's correct.
The work hadn't been done to cost them.
We have never sat down, that's always been on our priority list, that, or first, the Whangatar swimming pool cover has been there from day
has
1.
Terry raised this at council table when we've discussed this previously?
Not that I.
Not like-
We started off going through the discussion, and we got to.
We've had 2 workshops, Terry, and these have not been raised.
They haven't been raised.
Now, I beg your pardon?
Well, the first one we went to UI was with, we got halfway to Mercury Bay's one, and we all stopped and went home. Remember that? Didn't even get a chance to discuss it. So they have not been discussed. I got this list the other day, and it came from our area manager who sat down with staff, and we had not seen it. So I would like those please included.
All right, to go through them again, I'm going to mark them on my thing. So you've got Park Patara, it's just one.
Paku Bay reclamation, and Whangatar,
Yep.
Wentworth Valley Walkway, Whangatar boat ramp pontoon, Whangatar swimming pool cover, minor works cemeteries, and causeway cycle path. Thank you.
Why are they uncosted?
Yeah, why aren't they?
Because no one's ever got to that stage in the discussion. We get halfway through the discussion, and then there's a big carry on about maybe that Winnie Yang wanting everything.
Through the chair, some of them will be costed, minor reserves, minor cemetery works. Some of those would have been costed, I think, but a lot of them ideas that came up after the process and they haven't been costed, so.
They've actually got costings for the swimming pool cover that have been done, so.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing I'd just mention is, just picking up on Murray and Tony's point about $12 per ratepayer. So the first year of the nice to have Mercury Bay projects is $1 million, so that is about 12%, $12 on the rate, sorry, local rate. But if you look over the 10 years, that whole nice to have list is 27 million. So that's average of 2.7 million a year, that's $32 per year, and that's going to compound. So the first year is going to have 32, and then the next year you've got the first 32 plus the second 32. So that is going to rapidly race up if you throw in all of that $27 million worth of projects to be funded.
If you don't want them, you stop developing, no one walks anywhere in the world.
I'm just saying, it's not, I'm just raising it, I don't want you to go away thinking it's $12 and that's it. It's
No, we don't.
Okay.
Because if you review it every year in annual plan,
Yeah.
we'll go through the same stuff this year.
It was over the first 3 years that they basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 something million over 3 years.
It's about $50 for the first 3 years.
It's
Warwick, is Warwick still there? Warwick, so can I ask you, for Tyro, is that the case with Passion Bay reclamation?
In what respect, what way?
You wanted that added in?
Yes, please. I think it's critical for our, particularly our trailer park.
So you introduced that at community board level at what point?
He's raised it to me more than several times. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So
Through the chair, my concern is that do we even have any concept to price or anything on these projects? Like how are we going to?
So when was this raised with the community board? Was it signed off by the community board?
It's a project in there,
I'm asking Warwick.
Well, I can't tell you which particular meeting it was put in there, but it's certainly been discussed.
Has it been signed off, included in the LTP by the community board? As a resolution?
Really sure.
Yeah, it's in your list of projects, and you sign that off as a community.
It's always been on the sequence.
Always been on the C list? Okay, so that's right. And the other ones, all from the town?
Or from the town, as far as I'm aware, they've always been in the C list, the lists have been out there.
Okay.
My only suggestion is for any of these uncosted projects, we haven't got the time to do any costings or any investigation or any work. So all we can allow is a nominal $50,000 for investigation to deal with as part of an annual plan the following year. That's.
We'll come and get you some costings. Through the chair.
I'm not able to accept council's estimates, sadly. I mean, this has got to be done by the technical professional staff. I don't even know what the information is all about.
The other issue that
Rob, we never even hit budget, but we do this, so it doesn't matter, it's a figure. That's what you're asking.
the other issue that we have, the other issue that we have with the swimming pool cover is it's not a capital project because we don't own the pool or the land. It would be an OPEX project, so that has, it has to be costed out properly through as though it's OPEX.
It's not, John?
I was just thinking, I can pull back, we could back and pull back. Just put this out, like we originally were going to, for consultation, get the feedback from our communities on the nice to have list and then come back and have this debate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how we were going to proceed with it. So we're going down that path.
To go out for consultation,
Yeah.
you need to put a figure around some of these projects.
I can't do anything to see that just took you by surprise, but I'm talking about the nice to haves versus the. Yeah, it will be, that'll be the, what will come down to. You're just the same guy, say blood and feathers around here.
So if you're really fit on the C list can come in at any time for a plan.
Well, again, if it's uncosted, to my mind, it means it hasn't been properly discussed during the last MTC period.
I agree.
So if it's uncosted and it hasn't been discussed in the last 3 years, how the hell does it appear? And how are we going to promote it going forwards? Because we don't know if it needs resource consents, we don't know if it's land purchases, we don't know what the issues are. So we're setting ourselves up for failure from elected member and staff perspective by picking on projects that we know nothing about.
These have been in the minutes of the community board for the last year and a half.
It needs a resource consent.
What do you mean?
Does it need a resource consent for a reclamation?
Oh, I don't know, reclamation, I don't know, this is for reclamation. It's hard to.
If it needs a resource consent, then that could be a 2-year delay. So why are we talking about budgeting for it next year? This is the problem I have at this stage.
I think Steve.
I think
We'd actually done one circuit more than we usually would have done with our community boards to try and tease all this out.
No, it's just around this table, it's around the community table.
No, I have got what's for Cyprus. Without going to here Austin, there's been a project, there's been some definition around it. That's gone for a system within a budget to go and get something from the work, and hence they were possible. That's all we have to do, all we have to do, is go and get a project definition, and then go off and get the budget to go and do the work, to get it costed, but that hasn't been done. None of us can help that.
You've only got 21 projects in the C, in your C section, you bring them forward.
No, I'm not bringing anything forward.
No, you don't.
Where's not?
You're not bringing those forward?
No, because they're not costed, they're not in the equation, that's what we've been
Where
going
did
on
the
about.
12 that you bring it forward?
Right, we're moving right along
They're
here.
not costed.
Not having any further discussion on this. So we've got the must-dos and we've got the big list. We're going to move on and, where's the recommendation? Right, we're going to, we've now discussed this and Donna and Hayden have it clear about the must-dos and the B list. Anything from the C list, it needs more work, so.
That's right.
Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Second.
So, second, John. There being no more discussion, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried.
Hallelujah.
So, we're now going into public excluded. Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Move Tony, seconded Sally.